Hey everybody, and welcome back again to Old Dirty Gamers. Here, Richard Stanley, Eric Burrell, Terry Hodge, back again. Merry fucking Christmas.
Merry fucking Christmas.
And
Merry
this week,
Christmas. For the kids.
Merry freaking Christmas.
Oi, Merry freaking Christmas.
Oh boy.
I was trying to know what oi.
I don't know where that even came from.
Oi, was that they come deep in the barrels of your soul? I don't know what that was definitely a little weird for me.
We're doing it from around the globe now. Merry Christmas.
I've been watching a lot of British drama.
That was supposed to be British.
Maybe? I don't know.
That's not right.
Maybe Cockney?
No, definitely cocky.
Aren't they on an island?
They are.
Oh, okay.
To themselves, into their own island, into their own. So this week, we're obviously going to start with some releases, and we're going to talk a little bit about what we think might be the decline of horror games. This ball slowly going right into my face. Well, you can enjoy that. You can enjoy that.
Not so slow. Sometimes it's just slapping.
So if you guys, yeah, that's just okay.
There we go.
Anyways, sorry about that. Off subject. Really? Really? All right, you know what? We're just going to move right along to Terry's hot ball release.
Well, thank you, Richard. With this week's release, we are about 2 weeks behind, so there's a couple things that came out. It's still a bit of a dry period thanks to Christmas, so nobody wants to release a game a week or two before Christmas or anything. So there's going to be a lot of things going to be like upgrades or remakes or coming out on the PSN network. But we're going to get rolling right into it with the latest DLC for Destiny, The Dark Below. Not to be confused with The Love Below, which is an Outcast album.
Or The Dark Asshole.
Or The Dark Asshole. Or The Dark Aster, which is completely different. That's it's a Guardians of the Galaxy reference, folks. Anyways, Destiny's Dark Below came out.
Nerds.
Some of us have given it a shot and played it. There's been a little bit of controversy over it because it limited some content for longtime players who didn't have the DLC. This guy, namely, very upset about it myself. But I decided I'm going to purchase the DLC so I can review it for you guys so you know is it worth your time and money going in. And I'll let you know a little bit more about that. But it's got new stuff, new guns, new weapons, new armor. No new areas on new planets or anything like that. So you won't see Jupiter, you won't see Europa.
Uranus.
You're not going to see Uranus. You might see my anus if we keep doing these enough.
You got a mirror.
Yeah, if we get to 1,000 views, you'll see my anus.
Oh. All right.
Just so everybody knows, his family watches this, so they know, but they've all seen his anus.
They've all seen it. They've all seen it several times. So yeah, The Dark Below came out. I'm going to do a little article about it. We'll talk more in detail about it later, but there is some controversy. I'll cover all that. So
now, correct me if I'm wrong. Does this, when you buy this DLC, does it also take care of any further DLCs that are coming out?
No, it does not. It is a $20 DLC that grants you access to current content and one or two new areas on the same planet you've already been to.
But there's a season pass that's available.
There is a season pass available for $40.
Yeah,
so you can get the next expansion as well, which
is it actually an expansion?
I wouldn't even call it really an expansion.
Like a patch?
It's a big patch. It's a big patch.
Because that's what I heard from somebody else. It was when we were, I don't know if you guys, anybody who's there locally want to do a shout out, by the way. We had a big party last night. Not to go off too topic, but I got in a good conversation there last night at the Christmas party with somebody else who played it, and he was, sort of disenchanted with it in general. I let him know about how you'd had experience with it too. And he said his biggest problem was I paid $20 and it was basically like a patch. Like it wasn't an expansion. They called it an expansion and it was just a patch.
Basically. An expansion, you expect the content to expand, to see something you hadn't seen before. I mean, they added a new area inside a planet that you've already been to, but that is the only new location you go to. So it's kind of like, and there's the same enemies in there. There's not one new enemy type at all. No new enemy grenades or new enemy anything. A couple new weapons.
I get more expansion out of that every month and a half from Final Fantasy XIV.
Final Fantasy XIV is a much better upkept game and has.
Of course, I pay. People pay $15 a month, so maybe that's part of it too.
Well, eventually, if you keep making these patches and charge people $20 for it, then you can almost cut it out to make say you're getting a subscription fee out of people if they keep getting the downloadable content, which I will keep doing, so I can let you know whether it's worth your time and money.
Who's gonna take it in the dark below for you?
Dark below.
I will take it in the dark below for you. The darkness actually is not rising; it's sinking in this game.
Our euphemisms are way off topic now.
There's no new enemies in the dark below.
No, there's one. There's one. There's a new boss.
There's a new boss.
Yes. There's one.
It's already been downed, right? Didn't some dude solo it?
Some dude beat it completely by himself, which I thought was impossible, but because it seems like there's certain parts where you need groups of 2 or 3 to work out the enemy waves that come at you. A lot of it is just mitigating waves of enemies under very specific.
So you could just like use corners and stuff to mitigate it. I mean, it might take you a while, but
Yep. And the game is famous for having blind spots where enemies can't hit you, but you can hit them. So I'm sure he found every one of those and just executed it over time, because there are weapons that you don't need to get more ammo for that just recharge. And if you want to spend 3 hours in one blind spot working it out over time, it's probably possible until they patch that to make it more difficult. Which is they're probably going to do that in the future. We'll see. Destiny: The Dark Below DLC. Moving right along, our next hot release is Lara Croft: The Temple of Osiris for PS4, Xbox One, and PC. This is an alternate kind of play style for Lara Croft, where you get to play in a top-down kind of manner, and you use different analog sticks to control the area that you're shooting into, and it's actually a multiplayer game.
Yeah, I actually played the first one. I played Temple of Light for a while. It's pretty fun. I mean, if you like Gauntlet and that kind of style, as you said before, it works like you use one analog stick to walk, and then you point the analog stick in the direction to shoot, so you can kind of walk away and strafe and shoot that way and stuff like that. It's quick and dirty. There's nothing crazy about it. Anybody can pick it up. Anybody can play it. Simultaneous four-player play. It's I'm gonna spit.
A little juicy today.
4-player play. I would say that I am super juicy.
Oh my gosh.
What I would say is that I find it, and we talked about this before, like a week or two ago when we talked about racism. The game's it's a little pigeonholed. Like there's a black explorer who I haven't played it, so I can't say specifically who he is. But from the looks of him, he looks like somebody she hired to like come along. It couldn't actually just be like a hardcore black explorer.
Nope.
And then 2 like Aboriginal dressed natives that they pulled from somewhere who are chucking spears.
Spear chucking.
And that's and I can see people being like, I want to be Lara Croft. Who wants to be my servants? And so I don't know about the theme of it, but in terms of fun, it's pretty fun. So.
Well, we're thinking about doing a Let's Play for it later on.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. We might pick it up
and
and
some time over the break.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely take a look at that, and maybe you guys can take a look at it for yourself and see how enjoyable it is. We'll give it a shot.
You want to check some spears?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
I'd love to.
Whoever gets the highest score on each level, they'll get to be Lara Croft on the next one.
Oh, you know what? Actually, that sounds like amazing. That sounds a good idea.
Yeah.
Look at this guy.
So
many good ideas.
Oh my
Send
gosh.
him money now.
Right now.
Click our ads and send him money personally.
To
And
the link
edible
below.
underwear.
So, our next hot release is going to be Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, the trilogy for 3DS. Objection! For them making a trilogy for a game that's really the same game over and over again. Because from one game to the next, I've played a little bit of Alex Wright here or there. I never actually beat any of them, but I played each one for a little bit. And they are fun, but I don't see the purpose of making a trilogy, me personally. But if you want to go out there,
I think they remastered them.
Yeah, like a full-on remaster.
Yeah, do we want to get into what an HD remaster is?
Get in the weeds on that one.
Yeah, I think the most notable thing about Ace Wright is that it's almost got a cult following, and I'm not going to name what it's called, although I know the name. There is actually an Ace Wright adult movie.
Oh.
And instead he yells injection.
Oh my god.
And so
Injection.
I mean, I'll let you guys go out there and find that. And for those of you who are like maybe a little younger, maybe seeing this broadcast and don't know what that means, I don't know either.
Yeah.
Very chaste. Look at my face.
Never heard of it. But if that's something you're interested in, or a hardcore fan, or you've never played any of them and you want to kind of see what all the hype is about, I say check it out.
The adult movie?
No, the game.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
It's a video game thing.
Yeah.
Now, you played it before, right, Terry?
Yeah.
And is there an overarching, storyline through the whole thing?
Well, I played at different segments, but I do definitely think they are connected, but I don't think it's like going to be one big court case that led to another one. It's more like these are the life and times of this guy, and it's getting tougher for him to crack down on these cases. He plays a lawyer. It's a lot of fun. It does have a cult following, but if you're into it, take a look, see if it's something you might want to check out. Good trilogy. You can't beat 3 games, right? Anyways, moving right along. Our next release is Fly Hunter Origins for PS3 and PC. Did we get some footage of this?
Absolutely not.
No, absolutely
no. I can talk about it.
Okay.
So Fly Hunter, and I said this before. You play this guy who basically looks like a ripoff of like one of those Minion characters.
Yeah.
From what's the Disney movie? Something
Despicable
about evil.
Me.
Despicable Me. Horrible Me.
Despicable Me.
Okay, Despicable Me. And so you look like one of those little minions. And you go around and do that thing. So you have like one eyeball. I think they have one eyeball or 2.
Yeah, one has one eyeball. A couple of them.
God, I hate that movie. Seriously, go ahead.
Really?
Yeah, I think
It's so fuzzy.
It's so terrible.
Oh my god, that part is so
That
great.
part made me laugh. I mean, I don't have daughters, but I was there when my little sister was that, and I didn't want to say raised her, but watched her a lot when she kind of grew up to that, and that's kind of, oh my god, giant thing. So I thought it was kind of cute, but not really game related. But so anyway, so you play this little minion looking dude. He's like a space alien, and
Is
he's
it like side scroll or what? What's the game style?
yeah. It's a platformer. I was gonna get to that, but it's a
Gotcha.
platformer. You jump and you like hit things with a broom because he's a janitor on a spaceship, and all of the other one-eyed aliens who are touring the galaxy, and I'm presuming are pretty cool or badass or whatever because they're all locked in cryo sleep, and he's the only one who's awake. Being the simple-minded person that he is, he finds one of their test dummies and he's kind of flapping it around. Looks like one of those big sand-bottomed blow-up dummies that you can kind of hit and it moves back and forth. And he starts doing some ninja moves with his push broom, and he stabs right through the thing and it backs out, and he's pushed a button and it ejects all of the cryo sleep people on the ship into space. And so then he has to go like planet to planet and attack flies and other kinds of creatures that to us would be very small, but to him are very large.
Right.
And it's a platformer, and you clean up the universe in search of your friends who are in cryo sleep. So
Nice.
I probably made it sound a hell of a lot better than it actually is because it's really just jumping around and smacking stuff. So.
Well, in the DLC, he has to take on xenomorphs, but they're like full size, and he's like the size of an ant. So it's pretty epic, needless to say.
Epic.
It's like Shadow of the
Fly
Colossus
Hunter.
with the fly.
Oh, you wouldn't know about that, so yeah, you never played it.
I actually never played it either.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I let him borrow the game, and he hasn't played it. It's been like almost 2 years.
No excuses.
I don't have a PS3.
I don't want to hear an excuse. It's been 2 years. So, anyways,
Isn't it Shadow of the Colossus available for Steam?
I have no idea. We should look
I'm
that
pretty
up.
sure it was available for Steam.
Should look
Is
it
it?
up.
Yeah.
I'll find out about that.
Okay.
Our next release is called Juju. This one is another side-scroll platformer. Originally, it was
Do you
released.
shoot like Stars of David?
No, you don't shoot Stars today. It's Ju.
Oh, like Juju bees. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
No, this is another platformer side scroller. You play some characters on an island.
So
We're trying to
obvious.
stop the island from. I believe when I read it, I believe we're trying to stop the island from having a volcano go off by fighting bad guys and jumping around and solving puzzles.
Oh.
It
So
looked
like
pretty-
Joe versus the volcano side scroller?
Something like that. But if you imagine the side scrolls the outside of the island,
Sounds old school.
Oh.
it is old school. It's
Like
a remake.
Hudson Island or what it was called?
It
Where you
doesn't make any sense at all, but you just play it because fuck it.
what was that? What was that side scroll? Old school like Nintendo side scroll where you played the dude who was like he had like a grass skirt.
What? Oh, you're talking about Tomba?
Yeah.
Tomba. No?
No, Tumble was newer. Tumble.
Bonk? Yeah.
No,
I
I
want
want to
that
say it
game
was like
so
Hudson,
bad.
like Hudson. It was by Hudson Soft.
Pretty sure that's Bonk, dude.
No, man. I don't
He
know.
he would crawl around the ground with his mouth, and then you could jump and hit things with your head.
Boom.
I don't know. I'm gonna look while we're talking.
All
Keep
right,
going.
we'll look it up. I'll move on to our next hot release.
Boom.
Oh, let's open that up. Okay. It's called Boss! Exclamation point for PS Vita. This game is let me actually show you the verbatim here. It is a frenzied virtual monster game where players assume the role of a customizable giant monster attempting to destroy a magical kingdom. So if you could imagine like the old school Rampage games, but with cel shaded graphics, and you can customize your monster and rock around, destroy a city while people try to stop you. And originally the game came out in 1987 for the Commodore 64. So this is yet another remake.
So it doesn't have anything to do with Metal Gear?
No, just because it has boss in it doesn't mean it has anything to do with Metal Gear.
No.
Eric loves to bring up Metal Gear because he knows that I love Metal Gear like it's a member of my own family. So
I'm not sure it's Metal Gear that you love.
Metal Gear.
It might be
we'll get to that.
Hideo Koji's.
Well, now that we're on the topic, there is actually a PC version of Metal Gear Ground Zero is coming out with 4K graphics.
Oh.
Which
Whoa!
4K.
It's so in your face.
4, 2, 3, 4K.
That's one more case than the KKK. Anyway.
Oh man, slightly less racist, but so much more beautiful to look at.
So much.
So yeah, if you have a 4K monitor and you have a system that can push out those graphics, I say go check it out, man. The Fox engine always looks great. Hideo Kojima has never let us down ever with any game he's ever made. So he's granted you now access to what's going to
Bad
be
Hideo Kojima games.
not possible. You will not find one bad Hideo Kojima game.
Oh look, Solid Snake 2, Snake's Revenge. Oh, nobody liked that.
Oh,
That's cool.
man.
It's a great game. I don't know what everyone's talking about. It's one of the greatest games of all time.
Of all
Of all time. Anyways, moving right
Ocarina
along.
of Time, Snake's Revenge.
Yep, Metal Gear 2. Maybe not the best.
Maybe not the best, but still a lot of fun. So, our next not least we have is Game of Thrones, the Telltale game.
Oh yeah, wasn't somebody supposed to be playing that?
Yeah, I believe we
Talking about it?
We have an article
I've
coming
played
up
it.
and
Okay.
a review
You guys
coming
wanna
up here.
hear
pretty
about
soon.
it?
Yeah, I think.
I'll write about it someday too.
Oh yeah, that's what I think you should do. Is maybe we saw a video about it, and then we were like, hey, if you want to maybe do that, it'd be great.
Yeah.
I believe the
It's a good
lovely
game.
Eric Burrell may have actually played it. Eric?
It's a good game. It's Telltale Games, so if you've ever played The Walking Dead or A Wolf Among Us, it's very similar to those. Maybe a little bit more action-y.
Like sword combat?
In some respects. No, I take that back. Not really
Okay.
action-y. More just moving to the side. Like, oh, move to the side. Oh, press this. You don't really
Also
need
more
to
quick
aim.
time events?
A little bit of quick time
Quick time
yeah.
events kind of have like a love-hate relationship with gamers at this point. Like either some people love them, some people completely
Yeah.
hate them. Some games are just quick time events, and other games pepper them in, and people get pissed off. Like people didn't really like the amount of quick time events in like God of War 2 or something. They were really upset about it.
Yeah.
Or-
I would say, as far as the quick time events, it's more just getting through it. It's cool to see because it has to have the action scenes have to happen, but they're not focused on the action scenes. They're focused on the character interactions and the conversation choices that you make.
Right.
Which it has some pretty tense. If you watch the show, if you read the books, it has some pretty tense conversation choices that you got to make, which could make or break, live or die. Your character.
Where in the story does it take place? Is it at the start of Game of Thrones? Like if you haven't seen Game of Thrones up to this point, would it be okay to play the game?
Spoilers here. Fast forward a little bit if you don't want to hear, but this takes place after the Red Wedding.
Okay.
Or actually, the first part of the game takes place directly before the Red Wedding, in the shadow of the twins.
Ooh.
And you're part of Robb Stark's army, and the Red Wedding happens. Shit goes down. You make your way to the north, and it happens between the Red Wedding and what's his face? Prince. What's his name? God, I forget. Anyways,
The artist
Joffrey
formerly known.
Baratheon, right?
Joffrey's wedding. So it takes place between the Red Wedding and Joffrey's wedding. It uses the character likenesses of the actors rather than just making up new character models from the books. So you get a good look at like Cersei, the actress that plays her. So much. Peter Dinklage is in it. A little bit more
Also,
animated than his Destiny voiceovers.
Oh well, yeah.
What
It's not a robot.
ever do you mean? More animated?
He's actually playing Tyrion,
Like Captain
which is
Kirk.
great.
Ooh.
He's like, Cersei, why are you torturing the poor girl? And you're like, yeah, that's what I want to hear.
Oh, I did want to touch on quick time events. In case you don't know what those are, you're not familiar with that kind of game event. It's essentially where your character is doing something and a button will come up on the screen if you have to press the button within a certain amount of time, and then the character will do the next action in a series of actions and button presses, and you don't know what the button will be. So it's a little bit of attention to say, add X, and you gotta press X, or you'll die and start the event over again. They've become more and more popular in games. They're in everything now, basically. If it's going to be any kind of action game, including fighting games, they're not. If you play like the Naruto fighting games, they're in there.
I just want to point out that actually Metal Gear Rising is also considered a fairly low rent game by Hideo Kojima.
Most people did not
By
like
Hideous
Naruto.
Kojima.
Well, that one kind of hit some development bumps halfway through, but I do second it. It's got what, like a 7 out of 10, 70% around.
5.5, and then
Whoa.
Ground Zeroes has got. These are user scores from a Metascore that's put together, and then it's like
Okay.
Ground Zeroes has gotten a 5.5.
Wow.
Lunar Nights for the DS is a game that he did.
I
And,
like that game.
7.7.
a good game.
Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops Plus 7.2, and Metal Gear Acid 6.8.
Okay,
So
fair enough.
now
Well-
I'm sure you still love all of those.
I actually don't love all of those. I don't necessarily love Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. It's fun. I played through it 3 times, but that didn't mean I loved it. I was just trying to unlock stuff and beat it on its settings and use the not kill and cut the bullets, because you can do that. I didn't know you could do that until after I beat it twice. I was like, oh, okay. But and it has its level of ridiculousness, and I don't
I thought it was a very interesting game. Like they put a lot into your ability to kind of cut things into a bunch of spaces. So there was a lot of development stuff that was very interesting.
Yeah, and they really went there with the whole cutting thing. Really went there. And I like the other weapons you could use too. It was fun. And
It's different.
I would advise playing it if you're a Metal Gear fan and you need something to tide you over until Metal Gear 5 comes out fully.
You know, I actually really liked Metal Gear Acid, and I don't.
like Metal Gear Acid
I'm not
as
really.
well.
I guess a lot of people didn't like it. It's just that it was different. So the idea of being restricted by cards to deciding what you could do and having to get good at it. Maybe it's because I used to be a really big card game player. I don't know, but
I like
think it was fun.
card-based games anyway, so I enjoyed every second of it. It was fun.
Get some card capture socked around there.
Yeah. I played Yu-Gi-Oh! Bring it on. I played Pokemon cards.
Pokemon,
Gotcha.
Magic the
Nope.
Gathering.
There was a
I
Kingdom
played
Hearts
Magic.
game that the combat was based upon cards. I played that one. That was a lot of fun. Chain of Memories. But we'll get into that for mine.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that game. I played that too.
It was a lot of fun. I liked it.
Anyways,
Moving right along. Let's see. Our next hot release would be Guyana Sisters Twisted Dreams, the director's cut for PS4 and PS1. And this is another remake of a classic game that came out. It's another side scroller. It's got some gameplay that's similar to the original Mario Bros, but it's been upgraded over the past 20 years with a big facelift. So you're running and jumping and using the two characters, kind of like a little bit like Ice Climbers, where there's two players on screen at the same time, but they're one actual character that work together.
okay.
Yeah, something worth looking into. It's coming out for the 3DS. If you want to give a try to what's hailed as in Japan as one of the classic platformers that didn't get a lot of love over here. So hey, if you like Japanese games, it's probably harder than the original Mario. You know, Japanese like it's super difficult. So
All right.
something to look into. And let's see, our next big release is called Scourge Outbreak. I actually read up on this one. I thought it was pretty interesting. It's a third-person shooter developed by Targaryen Studios and published by
Targaryen Studios.
I know, right?
Three-headed dragon.
Yeah, exactly. And published by UFO Entertainment. It was originally released for the Xbox 360 in July 2013, then re-released for PC, and now re-released again for PlayStation 3 this over the last couple of weeks or so. And it's an updated version of the original game, and the title was actually intended to have a couple of like chapters that come out, like episodic, the third-person kind of sci-fi shooter. But it's actually been reviewed so bad that they canceled making the game, but still bothered the series, but still bothered to re-release it for PS3.
Wow.
So it's going to be dirt cheap. It'll be like $10 or what have you. Sometimes I like to play a bad game just because it makes me recognize how good the good games I actually play are, and actually how much work goes into making a game good instead of just what they could put out as underdeveloped or not fun stuff. So I will probably check it out, maybe do a little Let's Play or something of it, just so you can see how silly and how bad some games are that get panned, or maybe how not that bad it is and it just got a bad rap. We'll see. We'll see if it deserved all the negative reviews and whatnot it had. So I mean, it's like Metacritic scores like 4. So yeah, it's pretty rough. It's really not well received. Suikoden 2 also came out for PS3 and Vita for
Re-release. Yeah, I don't know. Did they HD that at all? Or they just made it available.
Just made it available.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a pretty popular series. I've played a couple of them. They're a lot of fun. It's kind of the other side of the JRPG if you want to compare it to like Final Fantasy or other RPGs. There's a bunch of characters. You go around saving the world in different time zones and different time periods in each one. Similar to Final Fantasy. Some are in the future, some are in the past, some are steampunk, some are like airships, and that's it. They're fun. I would definitely look into it if you want to try a different kind of JRPG, or if you've never played any of them. Here, the second one really turned it on, really made Suikoden what it is, and they all kind of play off of that going forward. And for our final, we have 2 more releases. One would be Tennis in the Face, which I thought was a great name, because for one thing, you don't play tennis in it at all. It's not a tennis game. It's one of those like ragdoll physics games where you shoot stuff similar to Angry Birds from side to side. It's available for mobile now and for your PS3 and PS4. And there's little explosive barrels, and it's just.
Do you even like hit tennis balls to do things?
There are no tennis rackets or tennis related things in this game whatsoever.
Okay.
What it has a terrible name, but it should be called like Scientist or something, Scientist Explodey or something. Because you shoot little.
Scientist Explodey.
That's a better name than tennis.
I mean, then very next time I'm going to come up with a sci-fi game that's terrifying. It's a little bit like Dead Space, and it's just going to be called Poop on a Stick.
Poop on a Stick.
Poop on a stick.
Poop on a Stick.
Coming
The
out
scariest game of the season.
Poop on a stick.
Well, you know what? That might be scarier than some of the games we're going to talk about later on today, because poop on a stick is pretty scary. I wouldn't want it near me. If somebody has a poop on a stick right now, I would get the hell out of here.
I feel like we could make an entire game called Poop on a Stick, and it would actually just be you upload pictures of your friends, and you put that on the back wall, and you're a monkey, and you just throw poo at their face. And that's the whole.
And there's like a point system for how close you are to hitting them directly.
Yeah, like that old game that had the wastebasket, and you would like throw the crumpled papers in the wastebasket. You know that? It's just like.
We are really in the development processes of making our own game. I hope you're ready for this.
Yeah.
This may
Poop
come
on a
out.
Stick.
2015. Look out.
Forward.
Yeah.
GlitchSlap, Poop on a Stick. Boom.
Slap.
Yep.
Poop on a stick.
All right, for our last hot release, we have something I'm super excited about. Guilty Gear X Ermagerd. It's the third one.
Exerd.
Guilty Gear X RD. X retarded title
Because they wanted it. They wanted it to be cooler than third. And
Yeah.
what's cooler than 3? X.
X, exactly.
For
Zerd.
extreme,
But
maybe.
if you look at Guilty Gear, they're known for having ridiculous titles. Original Guilty Gear called Guilty Gear, then Guilty Gear X, then
Sure.
Guilty Gear XX Reload, then Guilty Gear XX Accent Core, then Guilty Gear XX Accent Core Plus, then Guilty Gear XX Asuka. Like, they have the most terrible, ridiculous names because they just keep re-releasing the game with like 2 or more characters and 3 stages and like, buy it again. And I buy it again. I'm going to buy it again. That's how it works. So this is the first Japanese fighter made for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 3 from the ground up, but it's considered to be a next-gen
Make that
fighting
bigger
game
for everybody to see.
with very high-res, sweet graphics. Here we have Soul Bad Guy facing off against his rival Kikisk, probably with Holy Orders playing. If anyone plays Guilty Gear, they know what I'm talking about. Holy Orders. It's a sweet song. Anyways. And in this game, they've made a few changes to the combat system, and they've upgraded a few set lists. So some characters have new moves, and some characters have new ways to battle.
There's another one too.
Excellent. This is actually a great picture. It shows off one of the new characters and a classic character, Eddie. As you can see, he's using a new move that he didn't have before, where he uses his symbiote-type creature to do what looks like a big grab, which would be great because he needed some work on his grabs. Now, in the picture, you can see they have his Japanese name, Zato, up there. So longtime players may
Zato equals 1?
Yeah, Zato equals 1. That's his name.
What does that?
Japan.
What does that mean?
Zato is actually a dead body. The creature is who they're referring to. He's a corpse, and the creature is what is actually moving him. So it's causing this drill effect over here on the right, and also the giant hand that you see. And it can completely encompass him. He's like a kind of a, if you know Venom from the Marvel Universe, very similar to that. Not to be confused with another character who's also called Venom in the Guilty Gear universe. Sorry, guys. It's Guilty Gear. Venom is a cool character.
Well, I don't get why is it called Zato equals 1?
That's the name of the creature. Why is
His
it called
name
that?
is Zato equals 1?
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's the Guilty Gear universe. It's completely ridiculous. Dude, it makes no sense. A lot of it.
Okay.
It's fun.
So explain some of the stuff that you have in the bottom of the screen here. So
Okay.
what is the tension meter?
Tension is your special bar. That is the meter of how much you can build up. You need to get halfway to do a super move. You can get a quarter to do a dust or EX move, which is a more powerful version of one of your special moves.
Sounds like Street Fighter.
Yeah, very similar. Very similar.
Now did Street Fighter do this like tension, like EX charge super mega thing first, or was this something that these guys piloted?
They did it first, starting with they did it with Street Fighter 3 Third Strike,
Okay.
where they added the EX move so you could do the quarters and the half for the super, and then another super as a full special bar.
I thought that they had that in one of the later Street Fighter 2. It's like Super Street Fighter 2 didn't have that? I thought there was
Perhaps in one of the editions, because they've made so many editions. of
Yeah,
Street
it
Fighter
was
2.
60 million. We do a whole other show about
Yeah.
how long we elongate fighting games for the purposes of just taking your money and pissing you off, basically.
Exactly. And if you see on screen, on the top right and top left, there's the word burst written by the character's name. That was something that Guilty Gear invented, which is the ability to repel any attack from anybody, including supers, and you can only burst maybe once per 2 rounds. And also, I like the redesign on Milia Rage. This costume is a lot more conservative than her typical costume. I like the hat. She's looking good. And the graphics look amazing. It's definitely going to be a super hot game. But a bit of a letdown for some of us longtime players. They removed the EX capabilities from all characters. If you're playing Guilty Gear, there is a simple command list. And then...
I can't believe they did that.
I can't believe they did it, honestly. And then you can unlock EX, which is a totally different command list for that character. So what would do a fireball with Ryu would now do like 2 fireballs, or now you can do it in the air, or now you can do one on the ground or something. So it changes their command list.
Did it change the way a move worked, or did it change a different move? Like instead of doing a fireball, he would like rush forward and hit somebody entirely different.
It'd be a completely different move for the
Okay.
most part. They still have something to fall in line. They're somewhat similar, but the move set completely different. New supers and everything. And Guilty Gear also premiered the one-hit KO system for Japanese fighters, where you can go into a mode where your character will do a move that will kill the other character for sure in one hit. But anyways, I can go on all day about Guilty Gear. That's going to be a whole nother thing. I'm actually not going to pick up this title right now. I'm going to wait for the Plus version, because if you ever played any fighting game, you always know nowadays they're going to release a better version later on, and they've already said it's going to come out before summer of next year. So
For reals.
with more characters and hopefully, fingers crossed, EX mode, maybe give us our black mode back and give us gold back as well.
It's all about black mode.
Dude, black mode is sweet. Black mode is sweet. And anyways, Guilty Gear Xrd, I'm going to play it when they do the plus. But I might check this out just to let you guys know how the combat system has changed fully. More to come.
Sounds good.
Guilty Gear.
And that's it for the hot release.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it for that.
Okay.
Excellent.
Well, we're going to move on to today's topic. Today's topic is actually mostly about horror games.
Horror.
What do we think about horror games? I know that we've talked previously about games over the years and the types of games that we like. And I want to start off by talking about one of the really old school ones. Did you guys ever play this? It's called Sweet Home.
I never got the chance to play Sweet Home myself.
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So Sweet Home was, you can look at it, it's absolutely terrifying. And actually I'm going to move it because I want to be able to see myself, but nobody cares about Eric.
Is that for the Famicom?
Yeah, it is, actually. Oh, we're sliding it over to Terry.
All right. You know what? It's real racist. The black guy can't be shown.
Oh my God, it's so terrifying.
So what's so great about this classic game?
So apparently the game was pretty much the first of its kind. Okay, so when it comes to horror games, there wasn't a whole lot horror games. There wasn't a whole lot going on. This game came out in 1989, and it was the first time somebody really tried to make something scary and sort of terrifying. And I can bring up a couple of images so you guys can take a look at exactly what I'm talking about in terms of some of the weirdness and scariness.
I like to
Okay.
see those holes.
Woo!
So this image, it really kind of shows you what happens when you die. You can see, and I blew this up so you can take a look at it, but you can really see things like blood. I wish I had a digital pointer here. I should get one on there so I can kind of circle things for you. But when your character died, this is what happened. It's brutal. There's shredded clothing. There's a blood outline. I mean, I don't know whatever happened did to you, but it was obviously pretty severe.
Like
to me, it looks like this character's face is facing the wall. Like somebody smashed their face into the wall until they died.
And then kind of ground them up a little bit.
Either that or their face is completely black, which would be even more terrifying for some reason if your face got covered with hair.
I didn't even consider that he was facing us.
That could happen. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Maybe they turned the person's head around. Who knows?
Oh, like it's lying on his back, and then like the hair just and then they ripped the. I mean, it's a pretty visceral image for 8-bit.
It is
you know
for what 1989.
Yeah, it was 1989.
Oh man, what's Sweet
so this I have no idea. This is very Japanese, and it's the weird thing about Japanese stuff, and the reason why we have a tendency to find Japanese stuff even scarier than they do, is because what they use to be a basis for how they describe their own mysticism is a very different source than ours.
Right.
So I'm actually not sure. Samisu Kang is what that says, and I don't actually know what that is, but it looks like some kind of a mother holding a baby, and I don't know if that's like a tree or a trent. All the options here are like look for or go back, and so I don't know what you'd be doing in this room, but it's.
Well, let me give you a rundown of what the plot is for the game.
Okay, yeah, great.
I read about it. It's about some documentary makers who go into a house to find out what's going on in the house. And apparently, over the course of the game, you find out that there was a family that was living there, and the young child, a man, woman, and a child, the young child had fallen into the incinerator of the house and burned to death.
Oh my God.
And so the mother, in her crazy grief, was snatching children and throwing them into the incinerator so that her son would have playmates in the afterlife.
Seems legit.
When she got found out, she committed suicide, and now she haunts the mansion forever too.
Okay.
And so it's just like crazy bad shit happening, and you fight things, I guess.
Okay. So what do you think then? Some of the images that we're gonna pull up here.
Oh God!
There's just a maniac that's oozing pus.
I don't know.
Where does some of this stuff come from?
Child murders and suicide.
I don't know.
But it might be. Well, there's also, isn't there something in Japanese culture where if something bad happens,
more bad things happen?
it brings other bad things into it, like onis and weird things like that.
Like dark spirits
demons.
are attracted to
Right.
negative events and other ghosts. Oh God, what am I seeing?
Transformed.
Jesus,
Lady
That's not
Mamiya transformed.
That's not a Camaro.
I wonder if that's
God.
the chick who threw the people into the well. I don't know. I haven't actually played it. I kind of want to get an emulator now or something. If I could find a cartridge for this, they actually have quite a little bit of cloners down there where you can just kind of play the games on the actual television. So maybe I'll look online and see if I can get a copy of this. It probably costs like $1 million. But anyway, so you see the kind of terrifying images and stuff that they show up here, and you really have to relate to the fact that it had so little to work with at the time.
And then even imagine the type of the 8-bit music that they would work with too.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, specifically playing Friday the 13th, and that was an eerie kind of. They managed to do a lot. I mean, Legend of Zelda is one of the most iconic video game themes of all time, and
Sure.
it's still just from that basic 8-bit. So
Sure.
a lot of creativity.
Sure, and I mean, there's definitely something to be said of the fact that when there was less technology, they had less to work with. But I don't want to make this statement to say, like some people might say, that things are necessarily better because they were more eerie. I do think that there's something to be said about the fact that we didn't have it yet. We didn't have that level of terrifying.
Right.
And I would say something like Sweet Home was definitely before its time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something also to be said for the fact that as time has gone on, I think we've had a much more difficult time re-scaring ourselves. So there are people who haven't been around for a very long period of time, like new kids, younger kids, and you put them into the movies that should be way scarier than or games, that are way scarier than when we were younger, but we didn't have time. We've had time to adjust. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing they see is uber scary, and then everything after that is going to need to be scarier and scarier. And we've had a long time to adjust. So we have to keep killing ourselves about stuff. And then it's coupled with, and I think we've talked about this before, that the genre has started to get too action-y, I would say.
Yep.
Well, I think there's something to be said, and I don't want to go too far off topic of the action things that is very real in horror games now. But as you get older, the things that scared you as a child aren't as scary anymore,
Right.
and the things that scare us as adults, as dirty old gamers instead of kids, these
Kids.
days. I mean, I'm afraid of taxes and bills and getting old and anything medical. But whereas any kind of medical process, not even the procedure.
Don't you
itself.
have free medical now or cheap medical? Wasn't that solved for you?
No, it's still
Yeah,
not
I
solved.
thought
Not even the medical
Democrats saved us
process,
from
the
that.
medical bills.
Still working on that.
Yeah, I feel like, maybe this kidney stone ain't that bad.
Oh yeah,
Maybe it'll unlock
piss it
itself
out.
if I hit myself
Yeah.
really hard.
Just kick myself in the stomach a bunch of times and real
Yeah,
clenched up.
let me go to the witch doctor.
Ooh ee ooh ah.
But, like, what
ching,
scares-
ching, walla walla bing bang. Ooh ee ooh ah ching ching walla walla bing bang boom 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 boom.
All right, sorry.
What scares us as adults isn't what scares when you're a kid. The dark scares you. What happens outside your room? What happens without you understanding what happened or understanding what's going on?
Like being sucked into a
That's
black hole.
Like, no, I understand what's happening there. That's fucking terrifying. God, that scene scared the shit out of me. Inception. If you haven't seen it, go see it.
He didn't mean Inception.
He didn't mean Inception.
Not Inception.
Wow. Nerds everywhere are just like, did he say Inception? He meant Interstellar?
I meant
Does he even
Memento.
know anything
Wrong
about the
movie by the same director.
I meant Prestige.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Fuck.
God, nerds
What are you even
everywhere.
doing?
Come and get him,
I don't
folks.
know.
He doesn't know what he's
Interstellar.
talking
If
about.
you haven't seen it, go see it.
It's all right.
So the jump scares thing is fun, which is what we're getting. What I think horror games today are getting more into. But when you watch it, more action gaming. Let's say that.
Yeah.
So we want to play something that escapes instead of scares us. Maybe.
You know what's funny? I don't even when we play, and you and I have talked about this previously quite a bit. Like we meet on Wednesdays to talk about this broadcast. So when I say we've talked about this, usually it means because we talked about it for a while. But
We did.
but the problem I think with a lot of the action stuff is that I feel too prepared for my situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like almost people sat around and said, I've seen enough of these movies that if something horrible happened, I would go straight to Walmart and buy 60 guns and have a ton of ammo. And so you'd be prepared. So naturally you're not as scared when you're fighting off an entire town of zombies and every zombie seems to drop a clip of ammo.
Yep, full clip.
Like, and that's kind of a little bit like what Terry and I were gonna get into and talk about. I think that there's definitely a list of mainstays up until now that have been, say, like Resident Evil and stuff. And we had talked about how Resident Evil has evolved over time, right?
Yeah.
You played Resident Evil 1. Resident Evil 1 was terrifying when we were young. I did actually go load it back up. It's not terrifying at all. Now. It's just hard to deal with.
It was actually the first PlayStation game I ever saw, and it was also my cousin's first time playing it. And we got to the part where you see the first zombie, and I ran out the room. I don't know. I actually didn't ever play that game again until the HD remake for GameCube. So I didn't know a lot of the stuff that people were talking about when I was younger, because that was just so terrifying to me, because I'd only played Super Nintendo before that, and I was like, what is it? Oh my God, this is real. I didn't see any of the bad dialogue or any of that. It just scared the crap out of me. So Resident Evil for me is like the birth of like really terrifying, when at the time was next generation gaming.
I beat it. It took me a year to beat it, because I would get to a scary part. If the scary part would happen, I would die. I'd throw the controller, say I was never playing this again. Not out of frustration, but out of just how scared I was.
Yeah, they were very good at, again, and I want to say at least it was in part that they made these decisions early on based off of other horror movies that people had worked with, in that it was more important to work with camera angles and suspense. And I feel like two things have happened. First off, if you grew up playing these games, now when you see a camera angle, you're like, well, something's going to jump out. You're not surprised anymore. Also, like I said, you've got like 2 shotguns, semi-automatic rifle, AK-47, like a bunch of bullets. So if something jumps out, you're just like, next weird angle. And that's part of the problem with that. Now, Resident Evil 1, the first 10 minutes, do you guys remember that game very much?
Yes.
Because I've played through it and its remix like 100 times now. So you go in the front door, you go to the right, there's a statue, the thing that you have to move, where you later come back and you put the blue and the red stone into, and you go in, you wander around, and you play for about 10 minutes before you ever even see a zombie. It's just, it's dark, it's gloomy, it's dank. And then you see that first zombie, and they have that full motion video of the like crunching and eating, and then like,
like the slowest zombie turn ever.
And you turn and you run away from it because you don't know what the hell's going on.
Right.
And if you'd never played that game, you weren't prepared for that. You didn't know.
No idea what you're getting into.
And so you run out of the hallway, and then nothing happens for a while again. You're like, oh, I got away from that zombie, okay. And the next time that something actually happens is dogs jumping through a window.
That shit fucking terrified me.
Yeah, because there's nothing that you can do about it, because people would talk about how the old Resident Evil games were hard to control. They weren't hard to control. They were realistic in a way. If you're in a hallway that's about as big as this, right, and you have a gun out, to immediately turn around and shoot something behind you as a running dog, like you do have to turn, and you have limited space. Now, maybe you don't have to turn this slowly. They could have made you turn faster, but that's how the body works. And so you'd be playing for another 10 minutes, something happens, and you go down this hallway, and just all of a sudden, and you're like, what? And your character can't move that fast. So you just had to run. You just had to choose to run. And unfortunately, because of how they do things now, you kind of know. Like you go in a hallway and you're like, there's nothing here. Windows. All right, something's going to come out of there. There's going to be some birds. All right, and that's part of the problem. We have to find, I think, new ways to scare ourselves into it.
Even, a lot of that too was the limitations of the hardware back in the day. So like you look at something like Silent Hill, which was the original Silent Hill, which was very masterful in building tension through the use of an environment. And they got around, Resident Evil had their loading screens was going through the doors, when you move into the next area.
Which works really well, actually.
It worked really well.
It was genius.
Silent Hill instead used fog. So there would only be a small part of the map that was, was it textured?
Yep.
That was textured at any one moment. And they would use the fog so that they could get past that, so they wouldn't have to have any loading screens. But they had that fog out there, and then they would just throw in monsters or creaks and sounds. And that's what really made, that part of that game made it even more fucking terrifying than it already kind of was. And the eeriness, and there actually wasn't a lot of bad guys in that game.
Right.
Just a lot of implied.
Right.
A lot of things implied by.
And Silent Hill is a lot more of a psychological game too.
Oh yeah.
Like you can still to this day you really don't know whether it's the powers of Samael and the connection of hell between Silent Hill or whatever.
Right.
I would say Silent Hill has done a better job over the years of maintaining their horror persona than Resident Evil has.
Yeah.
We had talked about before that I think Resident Evil maintained its original self until 4, right? Now it's funny
That's
because
when the big paradigm shift happened.
Right, and it's funny because everybody loves 4. Like they thought it was fantastic. And I'm not saying it's not a fun game.
It was game of the year when it came
But
out.
5 minutes into the game I was like, I'm not scared and I'm never going to be scared because I was too mobile. I could climb ladders, wait for them to come up, and then kick the ladder, and they'd all fall over and die. And then I would shoot people because you could aim. I could shoot you in the head. There was no.
Was the president's daughter?
Right, correct. Yeah, we went to Spain.
That's when you first discovered the Lost Plagas and all that. I played that game
Right.
6,000 times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard complaints about that ever since it came out. Just more actiony, less scary.
And I'm not saying it wasn't fun. I feel like there's a place for those Resident Evil games, but they need to stop making it the main vein, not to use a euphemism.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. I see what you're doing.
But honestly, I like the game, and I could see them like making a Mercenary spinoff or something where it does its own thing, and that's how that plays, and you do that, and you're like, when I want some serious multiplayer, like shoot 'em up, that's what I do.
Well,
but
they did that for 3DS, but 3DS is the only one that has a Mercenaries Resident Evil game. It's a mashup from Mercenaries of 4 and 5, and none from 6, I don't think, but that's it. That's the only place you can play, which is I thought was a big misstep.
well, there's some Chronicles games too. I don't know if you ever played the
Do
Chronicles.
they play like Mercenary mode though?
Well, no, but they're basically straight up FPS, like shooters of
right.
FPS,
That's right.
and those are super fun too. They play like House of the Dead,
Yeah.
right? And the House of the Dead was never scary.
They're a good
But
use
it
of the
was-
license and side stories and spin-offs, so
Right.
the main story should remain.
Like you
in
played as
that,
Wesker in one of them, where you were
Yeah.
seeing what's going on when Wesker was doing his thing while the Code Veronica was happening. So you were following the path of Wesker and stuff. And I think that that's a great place for it. But hopefully in the next Resident Evil they'll tone it back because, irrespective of the racial tones that we talked about before, Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6 are not scary. They are. I have tons of guns and rocket launchers.
No, they're thrilling
It's
and
horror
exciting.
mode, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
basically.
there's some intense moments, but those intense moments do not generate fear. They generate tension. Tension
Yeah.
and fear are two totally
Sure.
different things. Like if you're playing even Gears of War, there's times when you're playing, they're like, oh shit, this is gonna be really tense. They're coming from all over the place. Holy crap! But you're not afraid. You're having a ball. You're gunning down dudes all left and right. And the more strategic and cool ways you do it, that's great. But you don't feel genuine fear. You don't feel how you felt when that zombie turned around in Resident Evil 1.
No.
I mean, I would say the best Resident Evil game in terms of fear that's come out since 3 was the remake of 1. I know you're not particularly fond of 0. I liked 0 because I thought it was still had that same level of tension, and they experimented with a little bit of how the gameplay was. But I mean, you said you enjoed that, right?
Yeah,
That
it's
one,
still-
the remakes.
Yeah, I like both of them. I didn't like 0 as much as the original remake.
So here's what we've got that I'm
remake.
going to bring up is a couple of images from that remake, and I just wanted to use it as a talking point, right?
This is the remix.
Right, and on top of the fact that when we've been talking about like last week, when we talked about a little bit about people maybe using the whole HD remake and screwing people over, this was not that at all.
No.
It was the single. I would say in my mind, I can't think of another. The best remake of a game ever. I would say. Can
Now-
you think of a better one?
I just want to clarify for those of you who don't know at home, a remake and a reboot are two totally different things. I'll use Lara Croft Tomb Raider #1 and the most recent Lara Croft is called Tomb Raider as an example of a reboot of a game.
Right.
This is
Not a
different.
remake, yeah.
This is a remake where the
game is
stories
almost identical.
but with incredibly improved. Some parts of the gameplay are improved. Some clearly the graphics are.
Absolutely.
But if you ask me, I can't think of a better remake than what we have right here.
What they did in this game too is they upped the difficulty level to match the hardware that they had.
Yeah.
I know if you shot zombies at one part, the zombies would come back later in the game
Oh, that's
like
all the
10 times
zombies.
more powerful.
I thought that was all of them.
No,
No.
this was the first time that they did it in this one. Where
Oh, I meant all the
you-
zombies
you
in the game will
really-
come back. No?
No, in the original PlayStation version, when you would kill the zombies, but when you came back into the mansion after going through the lab or whatever, they would have the crawlers or whatever with the big claws that would
Lickers.
lop your head off and throw the fucking controller and get pissed off and be like, "This is bullshit."
Lickers were terrifying. Lickers are probably still the only thing that even in the newer ones you can throw some lickers in, and I'm like, oh fuck, because they move so fast that even having I'm like, where's my shotgun? Because you're only going to have just enough time to shoot them when they're 2 feet from you.
Yeah.
Yep.
which happens to be the best way to shoot.
I even played that with a Game Genie, and they still cut off my head, and that's when I was like, this game is bullshit.
Yeah.
Bye. And
Yeah.
then I played it and I finally beat
Wow.
it. But no, in this version though, when you would kill a zombie and you come back in, the zombie would come back to life, and it would be like 3 or 4 times stronger.
Yeah, a crimson head, I believe they call it.
Yeah.
And they'd be running faster too, right? Take more damage.
Right, and so it would very much discourage you from actually using any of your.
Oh,
any
can we
of
go
your
back to
weapons.
one screen before?
This one here?
Yeah, I'd like to note some of the improvements that they made to the game here.
Sure.
You were a big fan of this element, the defensive items.
I
right?
did. I like the defensive items,
You can
which you
see
can see
one
there
here.
hanging off
Yeah.
of his belt. Yeah.
So in this situation, the character would then take that knife, stab it in the zombie's head,
Yep.
and it would be gone forever.
Yep.
So until you found another knife somewhere.
Right. So you the way they would do it, and I realized that actually they do some of this in what's
Resident Evil 6, they do some of it. They brought it back.
no the one that got like Game of the Year by some people. This is the one that I haven't played recent that came out. Not Left Behind.
Revelations.
Um,
Left 4 Dead.
Left 4 Dead. Left 4 Dead.
Last of Us.
Last
Last of Us. Thank
Oh,
you.
Last
Jeez,
of
I was like thinking about like
We
Will
have-
Smith movies. I Am Legend.
We have a lot of horror games to get through today.
Yeah,
It's all
yeah. So The Last of Us, they did something similar too. Like you had you'd make a shiv and you could shiv a zombie, and when you shiv the zombie, the shiv would break. So it was the same kind of thing. For Chris, you had defensive knives and defensive grenades.
Yeah.
Which were super cool because the knife you would stick in there, and I think the knives actually worked more than once, and then like after 2 uses the knife would break off. And,
Okay.
because they were basically like old letter openers you found like
Yep.
sitting around. They weren't anything. And then he had grenades, which were like flashbangs.
Mhm.
And because flashbangs aren't going to do you any good against zombies, he would shove it inside the zombie's mouth and pull the pin out and then punch them, and it would
Like
blow
a
their
total
head.
badass. Chris
And it was,
Redfield.
yeah.
Chris Redfield.
But and it really kind of brought you back to actually how cool Chris is. Chris is a badass character. Like I enjoy Chris. If I was going to cosplay somebody, I'd want to cosplay Chris Redfield.
I think we
because
should all do Resident Evil cosplay.
we could do that. What are you going to be, Barry Burton?
I would.
You have a big old beard.
I probably wouldn't be Barry.
Jill,
I would.
don't go in there.
I'd probably do like Hunk, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's completely covered. And I'm
You could do
black,
Wesker.
so, Hunk.
White hair.
I'd rather be completely covered, so no one knows that I'm black.
What? Why? What's
'Cause
wrong?
There aren't
What?
there aren't very many black Resident Evil Starks characters.
What about the one from Resident Evil 5? She was hot.
Mm.
She had a male counterpart actually if you're in the DLC, but
There you
no,
go.
I don't want to be to that. I'd be Hunk. Hunk looks cool. He's got the gas mask on. He looks awesome.
Okay, but you're so pretty.
Oh my
You are
god.
very pretty.
I work out, so.
I work out.
Anyways, yeah, defensive items, big improvement. That's what you get in this remake.
You can also see the level of artistry that they put into it. They didn't just use, well, they did. They went back to using the flat matted backgrounds where it was like a really high res picture instead of doing CG because it's just more beautiful.
Pre-rendered backgrounds?
Yeah.
Yes,
Where it's just beautiful. It wasn't they didn't try to make everything CG, and it worked out. It just worked out better. This was actually, interestingly enough, it was for GameCube. And if you ask me, how many games came out for GameCube? Metroid, Zelda, Mario, and the rest I didn't care about. And then this came out, and this gave me a reason.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can still play it on your Wii. I still have copies of this stuff, and it's still magnificent.
You know what's
Absolutely
another good remake that came out for Wii?
What?
Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes.
Oh my god.
That's true.
That is
I had
hailed as
forgotten about
what
that.
may be the best Metal Gear game by plenty of fans. I mean, it was more action. Anyways, I'm not getting into Metal Gear right now. We're talking about horror games.
Kojima.
Kojima's the greatest. Kojima is the
One of these days, we're just going to send you to talk to him.
Kojima.
And you'll just...
Oh my
Kojima and Ivy Doom Kitty. Those are going to be the 2 interviews that we're going to set you up for.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for either one of those. So excited.
That was actually not for Ivy Doom Kitty. That was for Kojima. Is what that was for.
Ivy Doom Kid had to flip this table over. But
Yeah.
anyways.
If you're watching Ivy, you have a fan. Just so you know.
Huge fan.
Yeah.
Huge. In love.
I'm a
We all
fan
love
of
you.
3M.
Yeah.
I can't like it on Facebook because my daughter would see it, and you're a very attractive woman. I just want to say so.
I'm gonna try that one more time, which is so attractive.
Oh my
Heavy
gosh.
breathing, mouth breathers, must do you.
It's the NPR version of Old Dirty Gamers. right?
So, do we want to talk about Silent Hill too?
I would like to talk about Silent Hill real
Okay.
quick. We all talked about our number one, what really scared us about the Resident Evil series, the first game would happen.
Yeah.
For me, what really got me with with Silent Hill 1, I was playing the game, I was walking down some foggy, misty street, and one of the little creatures came out, and it was a guy whose body was completely pressed to the ground, and only the legs would move. And it left a little blood trail or something, black trail on the ground, and it moved under a car. So I was like, all right, go to the other side of the road. And I went in this building, and it was completely black in the building. There were no lights in there. I had my flashlight, and I found a piece of paper. And this is why the game is psychological. This is why it fucks with you. Somebody wrote a note, and it was like, I've been monitoring them. They're attracted by the light. They're attracted by the sound. The best way to survive is just to stay in a dark, quiet place. But even then, you can hear them coming, and that was it.
Oh my god!
And that was it. And I was like, "Who wrote this? What the fuck is going on in this town? I don't want to keep walking around in this. I'm just gonna go play Pokemon. What am I doing here? I'd rather catch them all than get caught by whatever the hell got. Because you know that person is dead or whatever, not there. You know?
Yeah.
Clearly, it didn't work for them.
It didn't work for them. So it makes you want to cut off your flashlight, but it's so dark, you know, because you don't want them to see whatever they are. And I thought that was just a fantastic piece of psychological game design, and I really think that psychological element is always what separated Silent Hill from other horror games, or at least they nailed that piece of it in that way. There's other psychological elements to other horror games and other games in general, but I think the way they did it with just starting with Silent Hill 1, 2, and 3 and on upward. I didn't play The Room or some of the later ones, but
I played The Room, and I'll talk about. I don't think The Room gets nearly as much like.
I thought it was great.
Did you play through it?
Not through the whole thing. I got to the subway, and then
it's actually fucking terrifying. Like you're in this.
Who's the main character of The Room? Is it related? Like,
it was originally made.
Henry Townsend is the name of the guy that was.
The game itself was actually made as another game, but they didn't think it was going to get enough play, so they remade it into a Silent Hill game, and I love the concept of it. So
you're just
much.
you're stuck in a room, and a lot of people were like, I don't know how that's going to work, but it's not that you don't interact with people and things outside the room. You actually go outside the room, but you go to it via these very Silent Hill-like portals, where you'll go into the bathroom and then like the toilets turn into a portal, and it's very Silent Hill-y, like it's gross and run down. But 2 minutes earlier, it was just plastered normal bathroom, and the room slowly gets more haunted over time. Like you start to find like blood in the sink and all kinds of stuff. And it's just a genuinely strange and horrifying situation to wake up and not know why, but to have basically a mystical chain wrapped around your door. You can't go out, and you're stuck in like a pocket dimension. So you can see out through the peephole, you can see the people in the street, but when you can't open the windows, when you yell they can't hear you, when you knock through the window they can't see you. So time keeps going, and you can't get out of this room. But all that happens is you can take basically portals into these vignettes of fucked up situations that other people are in. Because the theme of it is not actually like you're not so. Every Silent Hill is based around the psychology of the character you're playing, I would say, for the most part. Would you agree with that? And there's a lot there's a lot of fan service out there where people will make like long theories. I'm not going to try to get into it. It's actually super interesting stuff, to be fair.
Yeah, Silent Hill theory.
Right. So Silent Hill 1 was, it was about the main character, Harry Mason. The whole daughter thing. If you watch the movies in the last couple of years, it's unfortunately they turned Harry into kind of a woman instead, but it's similar enough that you would get the kind of concept. This guy, he found a girl while he was vacationing with his wife in Silent Hill or something like that. They picked her up, they took her out of Silent Hill. Turns out that the little girl was like a demon sacrifice to bring back Samael, like one of the higher demons of hell or something. And so and
they nailed that police officer character in the movie.
Oh yeah,
almost
absolutely.
1 for 1.
All the other characters in the movie were spot on. I thought the first Silent Hill actually was really good if you could just get over the fact that Harry didn't need to be a dude. Yeah. There was nothing overtly sexual about it, really.
Except, although he's one of the greatest video game villains of all time, they shoehorned Pyramid Head.
Oh, because he wasn't even part of the game.
We're not even talking about Silent Hill 2 yet, which we could do for an entire episode because that game is fucking outstanding.
I think it's
okay.
A little overrated.
It's
more psychological.
It is.
Very
Look, and so let's move on to that one, right? So Silent Hill 2, I think, is a fantastic game. I don't know. I would say it might be in a run for one of the best Silent Hill games. Yeah. It might be in a run for one of the best psychological survival horror games. I'll give you that because they did a lot of visual stimulating stuff. They had Pyramid Head. I wish we had some more kind of photos to go along with some of the stuff, but unfortunately there's some copyright stuff, so you just kind of have to look it up on your own. But he's super. We're making vaginas. I don't know what this is. This is my uterus head.
No?
It's kind of like this.
Oh yeah,
it's got
I'm a
the-
pyramid.
and
Oh.
you
How did I
can
get
tell
this
if
pyramid?
people have theorized that he's like the manifestation of the guy's sexual frustration and all kinds
Yeah,
of.
I've read that.
James Sunderland
Or
was
like
the main
ego
character.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, right. So the game's about how this other guy, completely unrelated to the first one, he gets a note, a letter from his dead wife saying, "Why don't you come back to Silent Hill and hang out with me? We used to like to vacation here." So he goes there.
But
and-
she's been dead.
But she's been dead for, that's why I said he's a dead wife, yeah.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
he goes through the game, and I'm not going to spoil it for you what happens, because I kind of feel like if you want to go play it, you should.
You can always buy the HD collection for PS3 and then buy it for PS4 if you want.
There you go.
Mm.
You.
Yeah, and then buy it again, and then buy it again, and buy it again. More HD remakes.
Yeah.
Then Silent Hill 3 follows the daughter of Harry Mason from the first one. So and then it's about her kind of coming of age. She just turned 16, dealing with that. So then the room.
Well, before we go to the room, can I comment on 3 real quick?
Sure.
When Silent Hill 3 came out, I was super pumped. I couldn't wait to play it. The graphics are great. However, I do think that game was probably the easiest Silent Hill I played so far.
Okay.
And maybe it was just the weapon variety they gave you. I know at one point you had like a submachine gun or something, and if you beat the game in certain ways, you'd get like lightsabers and all.
But
kinds
you can do
of
that
crazy
most of
stuff.
them. You can unlock
Yeah?
all kinds of crazy weapons. You can unlock katanas that one-hit kill things in the first
Okay,
one.
I never did any of that in the other
Yeah,
games.
they're all in there.
Was it one of the first? When was the Silent Hill franchise one of the first games to have as many multiple endings as it did? Because I know Silent 2.
I don't know,
Silent
maybe
Hill
in the
1 had
horror
3.
genre. But there's
Yeah,
other
definitely in the horror
genres.
genre. I think probably the reigning king of games with multiple endings is Chrono Trigger.
Okay.
Which I'm playing right now.
Hundreds.
We're going to do
There's
a
like a
review
lot.
Oh,
coming
okay.
up. I don't know if I'll do all the hundreds of endings, but I will definitely
There's
beat
a
it and
lot
let you
of
know
endings.
what's so great about it, what's the hype. But another thing I want to say about Silent Hill 3 is they released that soundtrack with it when it first came out. And I got that
soundtrack
too.
was great.
That was one of the first games I ever actually bought and got the soundtrack with it right away. And it was great, and I enjoyed it still
And
to
it
this day.
added to the mood.
It
Added
did.
to the mood.
It brought you in
Very
more.
eerie.
Another psychological element of the game. Great music.
It was all female soundtrack, so it was also tied in the fact that you were playing, a somewhat vulnerable but also very willful and powerful girl because she's been through a lot of shit. So I thought again it was very good. And I don't want to stew too much on it. Check out all the Silent Hill games; they're all awesome.
They're really awesome.
At least
Really
until a
awesome.
certain point, and we'll get to that. So
Exactly.
Silent Hill 4, then, as I was kind of building up to, is Henry Townshend. It's not really about him. The game plays like a vignette of these other people who were having problems getting stuck in Silent Hill, and they're slowly basically just getting killed off. And you're sort of a bystander, solving a little bit of a mystery about it. And I don't actually remember off the top of my head if he was some kind of an investigator or something, but it wasn't entirely just about something he'd done wrong. So they turned it into almost like what is it called, 4 Rooms or something? There's a play or something.
Yeah.
Where that's how that vignette works. Is that it's actually from the point of view of a person who's dealing with 4 different rooms in an apartment complex, and they all have their own little stories. So that's how Silent Hill 4 played out, and it actually plays really well into the apartment complex. I think it's a great game. Terry hasn't played it yet. I let him know he should when he gets a chance. It's actually super cool. And the next couple where I would say it starts to kind of go downhill a little bit. Origins and Homecoming, I won't get into those too much. They're more like background stuff that talks a little bit about like the prequel and things like that. And they're interesting in their own right until 2009. And I guess Silent Hill Shattered Memories, I thought was the weakest game. And apparently a bunch of people thought it was fantastic. And it has a lot of psychological stuff that's played into it, which is fine. But the gameplay itself, did you ever see it? It was a
That
Wii
was for
game?
the Wii game with
where
the-
you would just
with
run.
the ice girl on the cover on a swing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I
That
was
was the first
super
one for the
excited.
Wii, too.
Yeah, it was the only one for the Wii. And I was super excited for it, but it was very easy. And that's what you're going to say. It seemed like the easiest one. And I have a problem with, to me, Silent Hill should be more about the puzzles and the psychology, and how often you kill monsters is like easy or not. I don't really care because it's just sort of part of it. It's not really not what made it scary. But that game, they cut it out entirely. All you did was you had pretty much 2 monsters the whole game, and you would go to these areas where your character would just run. And it was like Temple Run, is that what it's called?
Yeah, we're just one of those running in a straight line games.
Yeah, you were just running, and you could choose to go right or choose to go left, but you just kept running, and it would basically map you in circles until you chose the right doors, and you would throw flares to get out.
Wow.
So I never got caught. I never died. It was super easy. It was super boring. All the exploring areas were like, you're in one room, you take one door. There's a giant shiny thing in the left. You pick it up, you go to the next door. There's another giant shiny thing on the right. You pick it up, you go to the next door. It was not, you didn't need a map. It was for like 4-year-olds. And while I think that the storyline around it was kind of interesting, I feel like you could do a Let's Play, cut out everything except for the videos, and make all that was interesting about the game in about 15 minutes.
God.
It was just It was not something
step
great.
down from the original source material. Like that just seems like a lazy program.
It was a reimagining of it, and again, the storyline was interesting, and it was kind of an homage to the first one. You played as that same character, but it didn't. The gameplay didn't save itself for me.
I think this kind of is something that's indicative of horror franchises.
Right.
And I mean, even if you watch horror movies, you're a fan of it. I recently watched Hellraiser 1. I've watched Hellraiser 2 before in the past. They're great films as far as just, for how low budget they were, but how creepy and eerie and stuff like that.
Gross.
And gross. The third one is a huge step down. I mean, it builds the mythology, but it's cheesy. The special effects are bad. And it just kind of goes downhill from there still. I mean, you advance the mythology, but everything's kind of shitty.
Right.
Same thing with like the Jason movies, first and second one pretty good, third one no, and then it becomes, whatever.
So we can use Silent Hill as an example, and a single example of how horror games are getting worse. You start
falling into the tropes of what horror films are, and you just, I'm going to throw this in there, it's going to be a dark setting, and then I'm going to have monsters coming after you, and then that's it. It's a moneymaker, right?
Right.
Like, not necessarily. What made the first ones so unique is their unique take on the horror genre, and I think that's what happens to horror, any kind of horror franchise. You start getting... Horror in itself is kind of shallow. And if you try to stay too far into the mythology, you get locked into it and it becomes silly.
Right.
Yeah, and kind of cyntrical. You're going to get locked into this loop of like the Friday the 13th loop. How many more times are people going to go to Crystal Lake and they keep dying there? Like after the second or third time, just don't go there, dude.
Yeah.
How is Umbrella Corps even a company at this point?
Well, they try to solve that, and it just makes it seem more ridiculous. Like it becomes
like
this whole
Shadow Corporation or something, right?
Yeah, they're turning into Shadow Lou. Where
now they become the Illuminati, and
they're just, and you're like, all right, like which could be fine if you hadn't already toppled them like entirely, and so you have to come up with like a new set of investors who are equally evil and just decided to call it something else because that's pretty much what it is. And then they bring it back, and you're like, oh my god, it's Umbrella Corporation again.
Well, at the end of the sixth one, Wesker's back and he's on the phone with Barack Obama, and through Obamacare, they're going to get
serious for like 2 minutes because I was like, isn't Wesker dead?
Through Obamacare, they're going to get vaccinations of the X virus into everyone, and that's Resident Evil 7.
I heard about that on CNN. I heard about that on CNN.
Set up healthcare.
Exactly.
Vaccinate population. Question mark.
Profit. Yes.
Oh, the profit will be Obama's family actually runs all the funeral homes in America. So when all the black population starts to die off from all the vaccines, thank you, Wesker. You did a great job, and we're going to move right along. Execute program.
Execute profit.
End of line.
Yes, Mr. President. By the way, fuck Chris Redfield. He is not cool with Chris. We've never played the game. Anyway.
He's got a sexy lot. I think Wesker really wants to like put it in Chris Redfield's butt, though. He's got an abnormal. Chris!
I wish we could just play a stream of him just saying Chris.
You should put that together.
Yeah, I will.
Put that together.
We can always just do it with
Chris.
Eric. Give us your best Chris, Eric.
Chris.
Give your best Wesker hating on Chris.
I haven't heard him hating on Wesker. I know.
Oh, what do you got? Chris. What do you got, Gritch?
Chris.
All right, anyway.
Chris.
So,
not
to go off topic, just the last couple. So I played Downpour.
Okay.
We tried about Downpour. Downpour was a big return to like the big open city you got to Silent Hill, and it was all open air and stuff. The problem with Downpour was that it was buggy as all hell. When I played it, I don't know if they've patched it since. I'm sure they have. Nobody got time for that, so I moved on. But like the teleport system you were supposed to be able to use was broken when I was playing it.
Fine.
So for a while I was making 25-minute walking trips back through dungeons I'd already done, and then I was finally like, no. Even my wife was like, I can't watch you play this anymore. It's boring.
I can't do this.
Silent Hill Book of Memories came out after that, which was like a PS Vita multiplayer game. I played that for a while. It was kind of fun. It's not scary at all, but it plays like Temple of Osiris, which we were talking about. So multiple people can get on there and top down, and it was fun.
That just seems like a weird way to go with the Silent Hill game.
You know what? I'll put it in. You can try it. It's pretty interesting.
Locked into your mythology, like
yeah,
trying to build it up a little bit more, but like let's just tell a story and let's make it not be scary.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't. It wasn't billed as being a Silent Hill game, so I was like, all right, whatever. Like it's weird, kind of. I got it. Now Silent Hills, which nobody knows because everybody played PT, and it's supposed to be this thing where we're hoping, okay, it's going to be better. Apparently it doesn't come out to like 2016, so I'm just going to kind of stick that off on the side and ignore that it happens. But
we're just going to ignore it completely, even though who's behind it? Who's behind it?
I don't know. I don't know who's behind it.
Guillermo del Toro?
Yeah.
Yeah, but isn't there another guy working on it? The guy from that show that everybody likes?
Norman Reedus?
Oh, yeah, but one more guy.
yeah.
One more guy is involved with it. What's his name? Rhymes with video Mojima.
Is it?
It is a Hideo Kojima game.
Hideo Kojima is making it.
So we'll have to find out if it's going to work because Hideo Kojima's team was also behind Castlevania Lord of Shadows 2, and that didn't do so well. So I can keep going all day, actually, about not perfect things.
Hey, police knots, though.
I should say Lord of Shadows 1, though,
Yeah.
was fucking amazing. If you haven't played Castlevania Lord of Shadow, it's fucking... If you haven't played it,
I haven't played it.
I'm going to get it for you to
Okay.
play. It's amazing. It's
You
one.
won't
Did
play
you play
it,
through
but-
it?
Yeah, I played it.
It's most visually beautiful. It's got Patrick Stewart doing. He actually does the voiceover for a lot of this.
Nice.
It's the you when you play it, you'll be like, you're right. I should have played this years ago.
When you press start in the actual beginning of the game, the start menu, he says,
Immediately.
Patrick Stewart comes up and just make it so, like right away.
Oh yeah.
Belmont
And then
family.
It's a little bit like that. Like, I'll you know what? When we get back to after this, I'm gonna play you just the opening, and if you don't immediately want to play the game, I'm gonna be surprised because it's fucking amazing. So anyway, the point I wanted to make, and there's one more game we want to talk about. I think that we had brought some stuff. I think that you and I had really made a point about was Fatal Frame. Right. Now, did you ever play Fatal Frame?
Just little bits and pieces of it. I have watched some Let's Plays of it. So,
Fatal
and it
Frame
is fucking
is
terrifying.
horrifying. Like Fatal Frame, and we're gonna pull some images up here while we're talking. Fatal Frame is by far. Look at the imagery here. Everything is white. Now it's very steeped in Japanese lore. So as we're going through these images, I want you to keep that in mind. And that's how this is done. But they all look like China dolls. They didn't try to make them look like more human. Everything is just fucking creepy.
Right.
And in every single one of these, you're always in some place in like the mountains in the middle of nowhere, in some Japanese temple or old mansion where something horrible has happened.
Or
Every
has been
single time.
happening for quite some time.
Oh yeah, or it's still going, right?
Yeah.
So the pictures that we're showing here are actually from Fatal Frame 2. Fatal Frame 1 was still very scary. Fatal Frame 2, though, I think hit the high point of how scary they were. I played 3 of the Tormented, and it really kind of dragged on. And unfortunately, there's been 2 more releases that we've never even seen in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
I just became aware of them recently, so I'm going to try and procure a couple of those, or maybe watch some Let's Plays and see how it goes. But this particular story is about 2 twins. One twin who gets lost in this sort of combine that's like out in the woods, as of course. And when I played this, I was in college, in the middle of the woods, in the middle of the night, just horrifying. You know,
In
same
Japan,
looking.
though. You were in Japan.
I wasn't in Japan. I was in
Okay.
Flagstaff, Arizona. But there was still it was over winter break, so there was no one around. It was super cold, quiet. All you could hear was just like birds. With my now current wife sitting like shivering on the bed while I played through this. And you're playing one girl who's looking for her twin. And I don't want to go through much through the storyline here because I feel like people might actually want to see this. And I'm going to swap over the images here.
Now, could you describe the gameplay briefly so people know what they're getting into in this?
That
So
looks awesome.
you and I'm gonna So this is a room you get into. It's a video that happens when and you're told. And again, I don't want to describe too much about the storyline, but you're told, hey, there are spirits that are still inhabiting this place. And the problem with fighting spirits is it's not like fighting zombies.
Mm-hmm.
You might be able to kill a zombie by severing its brainstem or whatever and getting all sciencey. These are fucking ghosts.
Ghosts.
You can't shoot ghosts.
Nope.
You have no weapons. You're given one thing called a camera obscura. And the camera obscura has this like soul gem in it that allows you to basically capture spirits. So in order for you to be able to fight spirits, you have to get a camera. You have to grab a camera and you have to defend yourself. And in order to be able to do it effectively, you have to do it right fucking here.
Oh my God.
In their face. And I'd like to mention, when you're taking the pictures, it's not third person, so you have this like range of vision. It's right directly first person. So
As a matter of fact, you can't see the ghosts without the camera.
up.
All that you have is basically if you're looking at the top of the screen now, you see that red gem that's like going off, and that red gem, it starts out as blue, and the closer you get to a ghost, the more it starts to flash, and then it goes red. So you have to get in within 10 feet of a ghost. You have to get not so close that you don't proc them to coming at you, and then you have to turn and look at them. And when they realize that you can see them, they lunge at you like this. And there's a point where they're this close to the camera, you see those yellow and those red circles, where in order for you to do the maximum amount of damage, you have to let them get within 6 inches of your face, and they're all this terrifying.
Yep. Severed heads. They'll open
Oh
their
my
mouth,
God.
and an arm will come out and
Yeah,
grab at you or something.
like just
It's
horrible Japanese style, scary fucking shit.
And sometimes they'll be in the most awkward places. Like there was one ghost that was on the top shelf of a closet you had to open up. So you have to go up, open it up, get out, and the camera doesn't come up like lightning fast. It takes like a second.
Camera.
And like, all right, you look up there, then you see it's there, and it starts coming at you.
Yeah.
You want to back away and run away and get a better shot, but it's like there's no time. It's just gonna grab you and suck your soul out and die or something. It's terrifying.
And there's two modes to this. There's ghosts that they're actively trying to kill you and like eat your soul, and there's ghosts that aren't. They're spirits that have died, and you kind of also find them, but you can see their spirit, and it's there under rubble, crushed. Like from where it was, and you'll see their dead body. Like what'll happen is you'll come in a room and the camera's light will come on, it'll turn blue, but you'll know it's not aggressive. And you'll look to your left and there's a pile of rubble, and you'll be like, oh. And so you look around and then you'll find the spirit and you'll take a picture, and it'll take this hideous picture of what the person looked like when they died, with their body all crumbled up underneath that rubble, and then it gives you a storyline of basically that person's last words. And so it's all about building this storyline of all this horrible stuff that happened to people there. It's not just happening to you now, it's a whole narrative. And to me, I feel like that whole approach is it's far better than any other thing that I've played.
But would you say this game is atmosphere or gameplay or just this like perfect amalgamation of everything?
I mean, I think that they had not up until now, and that's a point I'm going to make here in a minute, but they had not made up until now that jump to, I want to say, sell out, to say, well, we'll give you something other than this really slow camera to take things out. So it's definitely a lot of atmosphere. And then I wouldn't say that the gameplay is somehow more fun, but they didn't allow the gameplay to get in the way of the atmosphere. Would you agree with that?
I think so, yeah. I think they used a game mechanic, which made it scarier.
Right. Yeah. So one of the things I was looking at while you guys were kind of going back and forth, and this was something I had wondered about for a while. So I like Fatal Frame 1 and 2. They were amazing. Fatal Frame 3, it was still along the same lines, but it was so long and really slow that I actually never finished the Tormented, which I got as a present. Now, there was another Fatal Frame Tsukihami no Kamen, which came out in 2008, and Fatal Frame Oracle of the Sodden Raven, which came out this year. We didn't get either one of those releases, but there's an interesting correlation of dates here, and this is what draws back to our main... We had to kind of go through the history of horror games so we could talk about where they're going. Fatal Frame 2 came out in 2003.
Wow.
Fatal Frame 3 came out in 2005. Resident Evil 4 came out in 2005. Silent Hill 4 came out in 2004. I would say that there has not been any, except for one or two exceptions, which I'll speak about, there hasn't been any really good games in this genre since 2005, 2004 time. That's what I would say. Because they were all around that same time period.
A lot of false starts, I think.
Absolutely.
Well, so it's been about 9, 8, 11 years in some cases in that time frame.
It's a long time. Now, there has been some games that have come out recently that have threatened to rejuvenate the horror genre. You can check out a couple of Let's Plays for some of those. Dylan does those. You can check him out, Dylan Stearns. And he's been doing Outlast.
And The Evil Within.
And The Evil Within. Yeah, I think he actually officially quit Evil Within.
Yeah.
I'll talk about Evil Within. Evil Within is not a fun game. 10 out of 10, no. 5 out of 10, maybe. Would definitely rent, might not bother. Like, I love horror games, and I played it till chapter 5 or 6, and people told me it's going to get better. I don't like being told it's going to get better. I am okay with watching a TV series where the first 2 episodes are kind of slow and drawing up, and then after that, I'm like, it's not worth it. You can watch other things. I shouldn't have to get to 6 or 7 hours of gameplay in for it to start to get entertaining.
Yeah.
Did you watch any of this game?
I haven't watched it. I've heard just what you guys have talked
Yeah, I talked to him about what
The
we watched
game
the other day.
starts out and it's ridiculous. You go into, you're like, oh, this is going to be totally creepy. There's these characters that I don't really like that much, but they're kind of awkward. But you walk in and you're this grisly cop and you're going into an insane asylum. Okay.
Insane Asylum.
Insane asylum sounds good. I think insane asylums are inherently fucking creepy.
Yeah,
They just
yeah.
are.
It's a great setting for a horror game.
Yeah, absolutely. There are so many things, like A House on Haunted Hill, I think it was called. Did you ever see that movie?
Yes.
Where they go to it's like an insane asylum, but they like the spirits like would steal people and suck them into the walls, and they
Yeah.
were like tortured for all time. That movie is fucking crazy.
House
so
on Haunted Hill, Session 9, if you've ever seen that.
I've seen
It's
Session
fucking
9. Yeah.
creepy.
yeah, man. So those kinds of things get to me, but you get knocked out after pretty much nothing happens. Yeah, there's dead bodies everywhere. I get it. We're kind of used to that now in the genre, right? So you don't know what's going on. You go through about 10 minutes, you get knocked out, and you wake up and you're hanging. And I'm sorry if this is spoilers. It happens in the first 10 minutes of the game. So you're hanging upside down, and I'm like, oh, what's going on? And you're swinging, and there's this big blobby thing chopping people up into, I guess, what you would consider meat. Now, I mean, the butcher was in Diablo 1. The butcher was scary because you couldn't see it. It was dark. And I'm not even going to get into like how Diablo 1 was kind of a survival horror game, really, even though it was action-packed. 2 and 3, not so much. But Diablo 1, that first moment when you're just walking and you don't even expect it, and then it's fresh meat. And this thing that's bigger than anything else you fought comes out of the shadows, and it's like hack, 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 hack. And you're like, oh my God! Running away, shoot it! Kill it with firebolt! And it's just... There's nothing you could do. You usually the first time I fought it, I just died. It's something I heard that fresh meat, and it came over. It was like hack, 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 and my gold fell everywhere. And I was like, I don't know what just happened. Holy fuck! So a guy who looks like he was ripped off of that saunters over, cuts off a dead body in half, and walks over, and he's like chopping it up, and they're playing the classical music that they play in Hitman all the time. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about? You play Hitman?
Yeah.
I play some of them.
I couldn't. I know it's a pretty famous classical thing. And you're swinging there, and you're tied up. So you basically swing over and grab this dagger that happens to be sticking out of a dead body because, like you do,
Of course.
put daggers in dead bodies and cut yourself loose and you sneak out.
Well, that's where I keep all the knives in my house.
Yeah, we'll put this within reach of somebody else. It'll be totally okay.
Super sanitary too. So.
Yeah, I mean, but it wasn't scary. It was gross.
It was really gross.
It was just totally gross, and I'm like, oh, blood, sinewy, kind of gross, and I was just like, I mean, I don't care, but it's not scary. So you go out, sneak around a little while, and then you kind of get chased down to an extent, and this guy's looking for you, and you sneak out and you leave, and it's just that. It feels like, and then you do this thing, and then you do this thing, and then you do this thing, and then Inception happens, and you drive an ambulance out of the insane asylum, and the city starts to fold. And when I say Inception, I mean like the movie, like he said earlier. It starts to fold on itself. Like the whole city, and all of a sudden the world's ending.
Without explanation at all.
No. And then you drive off a cliff and wake up, and I'm the whole time I'm like, what is going on? This is not scary. It's just fucking weird. It's like that moment. Did you play Final Fantasy VIII?
Yeah, it's my favorite Final Fantasy.
Okay, so maybe it wasn't weird for you.
I love that game.
But the moment when you come back to Galbottom, that's the name of the school?
Garden? Balam.
Yeah, okay, is it Balam?
Yeah, Balam. There's another one
Okay.
that's called...
You go back to
Galdea.
Balam Garden and you find out that actually like the garden is run by Jabba the Hutt.
Mm-hmm.
This giant fat thing, and it's an airship.
Yep.
That moment in the game was where I kind of checked out. I kind of went, what's happening?
Nope.
Sid,
I checked in so hard.
the
I was
whole
like,
thing
what?
floats. The whole thing floats, and suddenly like everything that kind of made sense, because Final Fantasy VIII is like the biggest mindfuck ever.
I
Like,
love that game so much. Go ahead.
But it was kind of that way for me. I was like, none of this is cohesive, and I'm sure that in 25 hours later of gameplay, after I feel like I've wasted my time, then you'll do the the village and like tell me what happened, and then I'll end the game and I'll be like, thanks for fucking wasting $60 of my dollars. It was terrible. But that's how that felt.
When the two gardens fought each other though with the flying motorcycles, it was great.
I don't even remember.
That
It's been so long.
I've played that game probably 17 times.
I mean, he could be doing better things with his life, but that's what he did.
I really like Final Fantasy VIII. I do. Anyways, move
He
back
likes
to
offbeat shit,
I
so
do.
that's why you keep him around, because someone's going to play that stuff.
Yep.
But Outlast, on the other hand, I played it a little bit, and I've watched more of our Let's Plays on them. And Outlast looks to be, to me, the first game that's really made an attempt in a very long time. And people like it. It's totally known. It's out there. It's not like something new. But other than Outlast, I don't know. You'd have to really have like a reckoning, and I'm hoping it turns around, but I don't see it really happening.
I think a lot of people would argue that games like the Walking Dead Telltale game is a great horror game, or that.
Did you play that?
Yeah, I did. I don't know if I would call it a horror game. There's
Neither
some
would I.
tense moments.
Neither would I, but plenty of people would be
it's
because
not,
it's
not scary.
game.
It's more like, oh Jesus, that just happened. Like, somebody just died.
That's what he said about The Last of Us. He said The Last of Us is not. It's not really a survival horror game. It's just this is the world you're in now.
Yeah.
It's an action
kinda
game.
what-
That would be like calling a Mad Max game a survival horror game.
Dude,
there's people.
there's parts of-
Fallout's not a survival horror game either, but there's zombies because
I mean, in Last of Us, there's parts where you have to strategically duck and cover and shoot other guys. Like the more you fight more guys with guns than you do mushroom head guys or clickers. Or there's like 4 monsters in the game that you fight and 10 different varieties of guys you got to deal with. Melee arm guys, shotgun arm guys, sniper rifle arm guys. It's like the people who are not turned into quote unquote zombies in that game are the real villains. And I wouldn't call it a survival horror game because you're not incredibly limited by the ammunition or anything, and there's always the melee option and different melee weapons and
Plus
the
you
stealth
can,
option.
You can, like crouch and then listen, and you can see the locations of all the guys.
Yeah,
And
there's
they walk notable paths. You're like,
Yes.
okay, I just gotta avoid this guy.
there's tense moments where you're like in a subway full of little zombie creatures, and you want to get around, sneak around in the dark, so you aren't going to fight them, or you can just take them all on at once like an action game. If you didn't have the option to kill every enemy in the game with the ammo that you have at all times, then it might move closer to survival horror. But there's never a time where you don't have enough to kill everything if you wanted to. You can kill everything in every encounter ever, every time. That's not a survival horror game. If there are 10 zombies in the room and you have 3 bullets, that is a freaking game.
To me, I feel like in order for it to really be survival horror, it has to be about managing your resources. So you haven't had that point to where you get into a room and you say, I've got no med packs, I've got 50% of my health, and I've got 6 bullets.
Now, you can get there on hardcore mode or whatever, but on normal, it's not.
But by then, it's not. You've lost the story. You've lost
Yeah.
all the things that are wrapping you into it, right? So
Yeah.
it wouldn't even matter by then. Were you going to say something? I'm sorry.
I just wanted to talk a little bit. I've had the chance to play Alien Isolation recently.
Oh, yeah,
I just
absolutely.
bought the game last week, and I started playing it. And then there's a quote in here I'm going to try and look for. But it's very much, I think I would term it survival horror. You get a gun at one point, but it's better not to use it, or to use it as limited as you can.
That sounds exactly like the description of when you get a gun in Silent Hill 1. But go right ahead.
Yeah. So far the game, as far as like mood setting, it's really dark. There's, they purposely tried to create the environment of the first Alien movie, where everything, if you couldn't make a prop out of it in 1980, you're not allowed, or 1976, I think. They weren't allowed to put it in the game. So any updated technology, all the computers are super green screen, like that they would have back then. Very mechanical electronics, and it helps create the mood. The mood is amazing in the game. It's incredible how tense everything is. The only problem I found with the game so far is that it's frustrating because it's not 100% clear on what the fuck you're supposed to be doing. So you end up. There was a scene just at the very beginning.
Man, I couldn't figure out how to get somewhere in the beginning because I just couldn't find.
Right.
Like I was running around in a couple of rooms and I hadn't even found the alien thing yet. I was just stuck. Yeah.
There was a scene at the beginning of the game where I'm all alone. I'd seen a couple people run around. I haven't seen the alien yet, so I wasn't too worried about it showing up. But I got to a part and there was all these closed doors, and I just couldn't figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. I'd collected all the items. I kept going back and forth. It was a fairly large area until I finally looked down, and then that's when this trap door illuminated, and I'm like, oh, I guess I'm supposed to go down there. But that took me a good 10, 15 minutes to find because I kept having to run back and forth. And so, I've kind of resorted
Sounds
at
like
this
bad
point to
game like design, because if you work in the ship, you should know where you're supposed to go.
It's you're on the station that you're on is new to you as far as a person, like as the character Ellen Ripley. But I mean, you've worked in those places too. You should be able to see it. It should be more clearly marked. And now I know to look for trapdoors if I get to an area. But I've done that a couple times where I've gotten stuck at some place and go, okay, what the hell am I supposed to do next? So, I'm still willing to give it the benefit of the doubt because I love the mythology and I think the setting is really great. But that's, kind of where I've gotten so far. And I think I found that when I played the original Resident Evil, running out of ribbons or running out of ammo, getting stuck at a certain scene.
Yeah, running out of ribbons, man. Like, just not being able to save because you're just like, I don't know if I can save. Because that's one of those things that that's one of those things that in a lot of games, especially on a PC, you can just like hit an autosave.
Right.
And it kills the whole like.
Well, we're totally spoiled by that now.
And that's what Alien Isolation goes back to. You have to find save points. You put in your data disk.
And you have to protect yourself, right? Like, because things can kill you while you're recording your data disk.
And when you put it in, it's got 3 lights and goes ping, ping, ping about that fast. And so you can't just run, save it real quick, and then run away from the alien or guys that are shooting at you. And so far what I've seen, the humans are fairly good shots too. So you can't just jump up, run away, think, okay, I'll be good. No, they hit me every single time, and that's been another part of frustration. And then having to go back to that save point, do all that over again. It's kind of taking me back. It reminds me a lot of playing Resident Evil, that was first Resident Evil. And there's a quote here in the development of the game that I wanted to say where they really wanted to go with it, which goes to how Resident Evil has gone more action-y. Let me find it here.
Hey, is this game first person or third person?
This game it's first person.
Okay. And you played it on the what's it called, the Oculus?
The Oculus,
Rift?
yeah, no. So at E3 last year, I had the opportunity to play on the Oculus Rift, and I couldn't imagine the game being nearly as nearly as scary in first person without it. The Oculus really added something, and what's interesting about that, and I don't want to get too much off on topic about the Oculus itself. The Oculus is a very strange machine. There's not a lot of things I would say. Did you find the quote you were looking for?
Yeah. It says when they were developing it, the studio wanted to feature only limited gunplay, as the studio felt that the action-oriented games such as Dead Space have marginalized real horror games.
And I would say that I want to defend just for a second Dead Space, because we didn't even mention Dead Space, and I probably should have. Dead Space 1 and 2 are genuinely good games. Mm-hmm. Dead Space 1, I would say, while it has its action-y moments, you do feel a little undergunned a lot of times.
Yeah,
which is great. Yeah, and so I feel like Dead Space 1 was definitely survival horror. It was just an FPS survival horror, so like fine. Dead Space 2 was still along the same lines, although it got a little weird. And then Dead Space 3 is when they finally sold out, right? It was when they finally said, okay, well, we're just going to add multiplayer. We're going to add all the things everybody else wants from every other game.
They turned it into Lost Planet, basically.
Yeah, and it stopped being nearly as scary as it was. So.
Right. I can even say that it had very good tension and good setting, and while it was gross at times, you still felt like you might not survive the situations you were in, and that you need to maybe not shoot this enemy or maybe just wound this enemy enough to run away and that sort of thing. So you didn't feel like this unstoppable badass, but you felt like definitely that tension of survival, like I don't know if I'm going to make it.
Well, it was very minimalist too, right?
Sure.
Like you didn't have a HUD or a heads-up display showing how much ammo that you had. Your health bar was just registered by the lights on your spine.
Which was pretty darn cool.
Yeah. And actually, I should say, this might be a small exception because Dead Space came out in 2008.
Right.
And then Dead Space 2 was 2011. So I guess those would be 2 games. But I would still say that for it being such a big genre, it was fairly dry during that period. Like, I think maybe that's why people liked Dead Space so much, because they were like, oh my God, something. It was, giving me that little bit of water to take you through. And I would say that's true. So as I was saying about the Oculus, like I played it, and I feel like that was one of the few games that I could really see somebody saying, if you sat down and you played this game with an Oculus, it would be amazing. There were a lot of games, Alien Isolation, absolutely. There are a lot of other games I just don't think it would work for. I think it would be great for FPSs and things like Alien Isolation, which is basically an FPS in a large way. But a lot of other games that they've been talking about, I just don't. I don't see the benefit to it. But that's not really what we're talking about today. So. Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, I wanted to also mention, as far as like, we've been talking a lot about AAA horror games, AAA titles coming from big studios. Where I've found a lot of great horror games today are coming from is mostly independent studios.
You mentioned like Slender stuff.
Slender and Slender: The Arrival. You know, very basic games. You have if you have never heard of Slender Man, it's about this tall, suited man with no face who, if you see him, that's pretty much it. You're now going to be taken by him. And the game, it features you're in woods. It's really dark. You have a flashlight, and you can click it on and off. You don't have any batteries or anything like that. But you're just trying to find all these pages of this journal, which kind of advanced the mythology.
Okay.
And Slender itself started out as a creepypasta, so you can read about the mythology of Slender, but the mythology of the game itself, like, okay, he's looking for me, this is what's happening, blah blah blah, and you got to find these 8 pages. But if you see him with your flashlight, you have to turn it off, turn around, run away, or else he'll get you. And when it does get you, it kind of does this jump scare flash on the screen. Everything goes like that. I haven't had a chance to play The Arrival, but those games, that's one of the games that. That's the first time I ever got. I don't know if you've ever heard of like PewDiePie, the most watched man on.
Who's that? Never heard of that guy.
On YouTube.
Is he
But that's where I first heard of him, was his Let's Plays of Slender, and there's so many Let's Plays of Slender where people are just screaming, and it's a very basic game. Like I was a fan of the original Paranormal Activity, not because I thought it was crazy original.
No, the original one that before they did the theater release, because it actually came out before. It came out and you could watch it, and then they did a theater release. And I don't know if you know this, they changed the ending for the theater release.
Right.
The first movie I like because it was very minimalist, and I'm a very big fan of minimalist, and I think that's what horror lends itself
hipster
to.
stuff.
Yeah, you are a hipster.
But the way that they use simple things as a door moving a little bit or a person standing in one place, and it just creates like an eerie atmosphere. Now, it doesn't work for multiple films, but apparently they keep making money, like Saw. But it was very much like that. And another game I've had the chance to play recently, Five Nights at Freddy's, which is it takes place all in an office with a laptop, and you're watching animatronic things, but everything's kind of dark. Very much like Chuck E. Cheese. These animatronic things will walk around, and if you let them get too close to you without closing these doors, they will murder you, apparently. I don't know, you're getting paid like $5 an hour. It's fucking terrible. I don't understand why you're there, but there's this huge mythology around it too, and that helps lend to the eeriness of the whole game. But it was very good. I played it. I could only get to the second night before I was like, okay, look, I need a better mouse for this. I need to be more comfortable, and because I was too tense, man.
Well, it seems like that's like becoming its own genre, like the jump scare genre.
Yeah.
Or like you said, a lot of indie games do that now. I don't know if a series of jump scares really qualifies to me as a horror game.
I think it's a horror game. I don't know if it's survival horror.
Yeah, it's definitely not
survival
survival
horror.
horror.
I think it's a horror game. And I was going to mention this before we're running out of time here, so we'll jump off here pretty soon. But I do want to mention, did either of you guys play Maniac Mansion?
Is that PC back in the day?
It was on PC. It was also, they did like a Commodore 64 one.
Never got the chance.
Maniac Mansion, and actually they turned it into a TV show, if you believe that. It was a Canadian TV show they got turned into. But
Nice.
Maniac Mansion was, and they did a remake of it. It's not where they were trying to kickstart a remake of it, but it was where you played this group of teenagers who were going into a mansion. And it was one of those like click around and find things going on kind of things.
Okay.
And I haven't brought this up on the screen, but
yeah.
I just wanted to put an idea out there into the world. If there's already a Kickstarter on it, great. If not, then whatever. I would really like to see a remake of Maniac Mansion. I just want to put that out there. It's not necessarily horror because it's kind of kooky, but there are like zombies and things. And if you guys get a chance, I would check it out. But we were talking about that earlier this week in the bar, and I just wanted to do a shout out to Maniac Mansion.
Maniac Mansion, starring Zac Efron, Leah Michele, the cast of Glee.
Jesus Christ.
I mean,
They're going to sing about it while they're there?
Yeah, hopefully.
You laugh about that, but
It's happening. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
all right, anything else we got covered today, or should we release them?
I think we covered the history of where horror games are, some of the high points, and how we believe it's kind of hitting a low point currently. indie games are a good place to look for if you're trying to have a interesting and entertaining horror experience. They're still trying with AAA titles, but just because they make horror games now doesn't mean they make them good. So I guess what I would like to ask anyone who wants to leave a comment or tell us your favorite horror game, or tell us what you think is the best or the worst. What do you think is the best and the worst horror games you've ever played?
The best horror game I've ever played, probably Silent Hill.
Okay.
One?
One, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, even after all that dick sucking about Silent Hill 2, you're not going to say Silent Hill 2?
I haven't played
kind of
all the way
on
through Silent Hill
Okay,
2,
fair
so
enough.
I'm still going to say Silent Hill 1.
What do you think the worst one you ever played was?
The worst horror game.
Or something that's hailed as a great horror game that's not really a horror game, something like that.
Oh, man.
'Cause it's not a horror game.
About this one.
Just off the top of your head, which one do you think wasn't very good?
Something that was boring. Come back to me.
Classic.
I know.
Classic.
I
He's
can't.
so indecisive.
I know I have played
So
some
indecisive.
just games. I'm like, this is not scary, but I can't think of it right now.
Nice. Well, go ahead. What do you got?
Fatal Frame 2, Crimson Butterfly. Absolutely. That'd be my scariest.
What about one of the worst ones you played?
Crimson
Silent Hill Shattered Memories.
Just playing up and down all.
Yeah, I mean, I could say maybe the third Fatal Frame because I just couldn't stick it out and it obviously bored me. But the game itself wasn't bad. I couldn't make it happen. But definitely Shattered Memories was all the way.
Gotcha.
So.
How about you?
I'm gonna agree with Richard on Crimson Butterfly for Fatal Frame. It's one of the most scary games I've ever played in my entire life.
We'll hook you up with that if you want to
Yeah,
play it.
I'll play that.
It's on PS2, so we should be able to make that happen.
If you ask me what's hailed as probably one of the worst, is probably Resident Evil 6. It's really bad.
You think it was just a bad game?
I think it was I think it was a bad game. I think it was a bad.
I still enjoyed myself. I just kicked and shot a lot of zombies.
But for me, JB, the kind of gaming that I like to play, I play.
It was not a main Resident Evil game.
Yeah, I play without trying to kill enemies anyway. So just a run and gun kind of gameplay, like when I was expecting like a Resident Evil game, because
You know something else, and I'm not trying to elongate this, but this is a good point of Resident Evil. Stop making things so big picture.
Yeah.
That kills it too.
Yeah.
Like Resident Evil
Like all
6
of China
takes
went down.
place, like Resident Evil 6 in another entire city, and you're running around a city, and you're with groups of 3 different people, and the storyline's bouncing back and forth. You lose track of the whole. It's me surviving. It's not survival horror because you have a team of 20 people that are all working towards stopping basically a missile from hitting a city.
It
That's
felt
not
like I was
Resident
playing
Evil.
a Michael Bay
man.
version of a Resident Evil game.
Yeah. I didn't even think about
Is it a
that.
zombie
but
missile?
There are, I think so.
Yeah, probably.
It's got like a graduated T virus in it.
Yeah, it actually had a zombie riding it with a cowboy hat.
Yeah, it was. I didn't think it was a bad game. I just didn't think it was very silent. It wasn't silent. It wasn't very Resident Evil-y. At least, like I said, 2004, 2005 was the last time that Resident Evil really happened. Where I was like,
I mean, I played through the entire thing, and I just felt like I was slogging through sludge. I just didn't enjoy it the whole time at all. I didn't have any moments where I was like, "This is so cool." I just kept thinking, "Man, how many more times you can do quick time events and run and drive the car and
it did drag. So
what the fuck am I doing?"
We'll see. Resident Evil 7. They're talking about either doing Resident Evil 7. There's been thoughts about just doing a full reboot.
Do you think a full reboot's a good idea?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many more times I need to go through the Raccoon City deal.
See, I think a full reboot that.
I would like a full HD remake of 1, 2, and 3 along the quality of the GameCube HD remake that we saw. Even if they just re-released the GameCube HD remake
of 2 and
of
3,
1 and make one of 2 and 3, and then I don't want to say scrap 5 and 6. But maybe do Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 with a big HD remake and maybe push it all in together into one extended game. Make that a game and call that be the new Genesis remake and then go from there.
Right.
So one remake of all the Raccoon City shit.
Right.
That has maybe 3 different chapters you can run through. It'll be a super long game, or maybe it's 1 and then they release 2 and 3 as DLC.
That way you can make DLC. And
exactly.
And then they think about making it episodic, not necessarily Telltale Games but
just releasing it in portions.
I just don't like small games. I don't like small games. I feel like you're fucking
3 big games.
Yeah, so it would be 3 games. I mean, it would be 3 games, but you could do them as DLC because if you're using the same engine for them, then just be you buy the Resident Evil package and you pay $40, $50, $60 for it, and then you can get 2 and 3 for the same thing. Requires the first one, but they're only $20 a piece, so you get it all for $100.
Right.
And then bring us back and just stop and be 4, 5, and 6. We're gonna do something else.
How about retaking the whole series and I've noticed this more in Japanese media and stuff like that, but taking the elements of the series like Christopher Field, Wesker, and the T-Virus, Umbrella Corporation, and just doing a new story with it right from the beginning. not adhering to the canon of the series, which is frankly kind of ridiculous. Just doing a whole new thing, I think that would be.
I don't know. It's hard for me to make that decision because I mean I grew up thinking that starting out with the genesis of the Raccoon City situation and the mansion, I think are really solid. I can come back to that. I just don't need to have 15 million stories about Raccoon City, and that's the problem. They had like Operation Raccoon City. They had where you played not the missionaries, but you played as the Umbrella Corporation people, multiplayer, and you were still just going through the city over and over again. I like the city and the mansion as a genesis because I feel like deciding as a company to take a city and turn it into a place where you're going to test a bunch of drugs, basically, and just kill people off for the purposes of testing weapons is a good start for a bad company. Right?
What? And this is maybe going off, but what enemies are that fucking terrible that you need, to make them into zombies?
Mostly Tea Party people. And on that, we're going to take it for the end of the day. So we appreciate it. We'll see you guys. We might take next week off. I'm not really sure yet. We'll see. Depends on what things are, but things always slow down toward the end of the year. So I think that's going to be good. So we appreciate you guys.
I just want to say before we wrap up, thanks for watching. This is episode 6, The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Woo.
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Happy
Christmas,
holidays.
everybody.
Thanks, guys.